How do we make sure, because we lost so many people, that we're replacing those people with skilled labor? Because our industry is not one. It's always so funny. People think it's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll and so amazing. Like, do you know what? If like you go to a concert and shit goes wrong, people die. Like,
exactly.
And that's not an exaggeration. And it's not like that happens in every industry. And I think that having a skill gap and like losing people and not knowing how to replace them is going to be really challenging. And like, what do we do? Because we all accidentally got here. So let's work together to stop getting here accidentally.
Yes.
How do people straight from high school get here? And then how do you get here from college? Because some people need both. They need all that.
Exactly. Welcome to the Gigs Podcast, live from Lititz. I'm your host, Nikki Sands, and we are filming on campus in Rock Lititz at the conference. So we get to sit down with the very best in the touring and live event industry. So let's get into it. We have Suzi Meyer, who is the chief of staff at Rock Lititz and focuses on workforce development, leadership and inclusion, and mental health and sustainability. Suzi, thank you for being on the Gigs Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Super exciting. Been a pleasure getting to know you through planning for this panel that will be actually not panel. It's really
we're going to be an interactive conversation,
which I love, because panels, some panels are done so well, but you gotta change it up. This one I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I am too.
Especially, you said you wrote a book, by the way?
No, I didn't write a book.
Okay.
No, that's Rachel Hill.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were like, I wrote the book on workforce, so I'm like, oh my gosh.
No, I didn't write the book on it, but you've
been researching
about it. I've been researching, I've been reading a lot of books, and I think my background being working on college campuses, and I have a master's in counseling with an emphasis in higher education. And that's so dorky, but I used to live in residence halls and talk to students and do leadership training and things like that.
Wow.
And I love when people have their aha moment. And so I think that tomorrow, when we have our discussion with the industry professionals here at the conference, I think sometimes when people talk, they have their own aha moments, and we just have to ask the right questions. And you are an expert at asking questions. So that's why I think that even though you have amazing knowledge to share, I also think by having you work with, like, we can pull some good stuff.
I so prefer what we're about to do. So before we get into that, because I'm really excited to talk about that, you were not on the road. You were not touring.
No.
How did you end up at Rock Lititz?
Yeah, it was really by chance, just like most of the people in the industry. I made a decision to leave higher education.
Yeah.
And I started working for an event planning company. I'm organized. I like detail. And interestingly enough, I like numbers. Small company, started learning accounting. The gentleman who owned it really trusted me with his finances. And at some point, that company didn't work, but he asked me to come back, and I basically did a lot. He was an entrepreneur. So I managed his personal finances for a beer store that he owned, a furniture company, a multi-tenant facility. And then he looked at me one day and said, I think I'm going to I want to be, get involved in a lighting company. And it was live event lighting. And so in 2008, I started working in the industry, really from accounting and HR perspective. And I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with And then I was there until 2016 for 8 years. And just because of family things, I needed to kind of make a change in my life, and took some time off. Thought I was going to take like 6 months off. And in 3 months, I heard about opportunity at Rock Lititz.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was actually for a job I knew I'd never be qualified for. I was a CFO. I never have wanted to do that. That's not my jam, but I really love the industry. And I reached out and said, here's my resume. I have some experience. I'll do anything to help you get through, because I also didn't know what I wanted to do. And I met our CEO, Andrea Shirk, and she looked at me and said, I think actually you might be what we're looking for. And I became the business manager. So I was helping to do some operations and things. And I remember we have a multi-tenant building here on campus that I absolutely love, Pod 2. I call her my home away from home. I walk in there and I feel such energy from the industry. And I called my dad, and I was like, and my dad was in higher education too. And I said, I love this. I love this place. I love my job. I love what I do. And he said, you're basically running buildings and doing what you did in residence life, but you're doing it in a business professional setting with the people who are your people, which is really freaking cool. Yeah.
So Andrea seeing you, also, I can imagine she saw the entrepreneur spirit in you, because Rock Lititz was being built at that time, right? What year was this?
So this was 2016, and we had Studio One that was open, and then Pod 2 had just opened, the first multi-tenant facility. So now we have, 5 studios on campus, 3 multi-tenant facilities, a hotel, a theater.
The first of the country, right?
The first of the country
to ever have something like that.
Which is really, really crazy. I do pinch myself every day and think, how did I get here? And then I also say to Andrea, please don't get rid of me.
Yeah.
This is my retirement plan. But I think it's all about, just like our industry is about being with the right people at the right time, using the skills that you have. And I really appreciated meeting Andrea. There was a lot about her. One of the things that I've loved about working here at Rock Lititz is there's a lot of women on our team, which is not always common in our industry.
True.
And it's been really, really incredible to see that and kind of see what that brings to the culture. And I do think some of it, because we do have a female CEO, is one of the reasons why I went from business manager to campus general manager to the position I'm in now, where I'm able to focus more on things like leadership, inclusion, sustainability, mental health, because it is something that is so important. And I think more industries should be focused on it. And I love that we have a leader that says this is important, because as we hear at the conference, it's important for everybody in our industry because it's so challenging physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And we need to focus on those things.
Interesting. So chief of staff role, go into what that means. And
it's not a common one. And so it kind of is a lot of people think of a chief of staff and politician, like a politics but we chose that role because we're going through transition and expanding down to Nashville, which I'm so excited about.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
So excited.
And the chief of staff role allows me to flex into different projects and positions. So I get to focus on those initiatives, but that part of the entrepreneurial part I was here with Andrea as we were growing the campus. I like to say I have breadth, not depth.
Yeah.
So chief of staff allows me to jump into projects and then leave them for somebody else to do it better. So I like to think that I hold a space for somebody else who's smarter than me or has a better skill set than me. And it's like, here you go. I was just holding it for you because you're the person who's really meant to own it, which is kind of what I love. And I'm assuming there's been a lot of things that we've done that I now see other people on the team doing and taking it to places I never imagined. And it's really, really great.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are doing something really special here. The conference being one of them. And I feel like that is kind of a cultivation of this new era of the industry of actually bringing together. It's been so cool. The conversations just here on the podcast about the mentorship, the learning, the community, and then talking about the shit that no one's ever that people haven't talked about since, with the mental health and with how do we actually enjoy our lives and continue? What's the longevity look like? And so part of this, and I know a new initiative is you guys talking about workforce and how can we keep people? How do we bring new people in? That's actually been the big topic is all right, the people who kind of created this industry are retiring. What does that look like? How do we get skilled labor back in?
Yeah.
Or brand new labor. How do we get them skilled?
Yeah.
So when did this conversation start for you guys? And then, how do you guys, I know you guys are wanting to lead the charge there, and Gigs is here to, all the things. We're all the same thing. So I want you to take over.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting. I think I got to be in my bonnet really about workforce. I call it workforce development in COVID. And one of the things when I was still working on the finances at Rock Lititz, and it was so hard to get any type of funding. So there were so many industries that were crushed during COVID. And I tried to be sympathetic, but sometimes it was challenging for me. We were the first ones to shut down, the last ones to start because we rely on large groups of people. Food and beverage, like the actual theaters were getting federal funding. There was so much support. But when you went to look at grants, live events, the touring industry, the freelancers, there was nothing. And that was devastating. And I think because I saw all these people that felt like my family here on Rock Lititz campus, and those that had felt like we welcomed them in as family when they were rehearsing, struggling and suffering. And it just really, and I can get emotional about it now, it really was frustrating because we don't have as much history as other industries. We don't have the type of data. There's amazing things happening and been running these shows, but the teams do such a good job of people not knowing they're there, making the magic happen. And it really hurt us in 2020. And it made me mad. It really made me mad. And I think that that really fueled something in me. And we were already talking about trying to bring people into the industry. How do you get this industry? It was something that we started doing before the pandemic. We started doing these high school events and these college events to try and recruit and say, hey, you want to be an accountant, then be a tour accountant. You're smart and you could be an engineer, then come and be an engineer with us. Or you just want to work out of college, come work, or high school, work in our warehouse and work your way up. So we already wanted to do that. And then after COVID, it was something that sparked because I thought I was mad that people weren't recognizing us.
And even trying to get a PPP loan was so difficult, and it wasn't much. It was we all had to figure out some pretty devastating alternative options that took people off the road forever too. So it's a dark time. I feel like we all kind of avoid talking about it because you just don't want to go back to that.
But yeah, I do. I know it's one of those things I've always said in my life, some of the worst moments though are the ones that pivot and make us push forward. I'm guessing that COVID probably pushed you forward to do this incredible stuff that you're doing in a way. And I think that it did light some fires under us to say, what do we need to do? And so even to the point of, what do we need to do to get recognized more formally? How do we make sure, because we lost so many people, that we're replacing those people with skilled labor? Because our industry is not one. It's always so funny. People think it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll and so amazing. Do you know what? If you go to a concert and shit goes wrong, people die.
Exactly.
And that's not an exaggeration. And it's not like that happens in every industry. And, I think that having a skill gap and losing people and not knowing how to replace them is going to be really challenging. And, what do we do? Because we all accidentally got here. So let's work together to stop getting here accidentally.
Yes.
And then we were saying yesterday, how do people straight from high school get here? And then how do you get here from college? Because some people need both. They need all the options.
That I've never heard it said that way. And I love that. We've all kind of gotten here accidentally. You go to a show, you have no idea that hundreds of people are made it actually happen. Or that your skill set could really, you can't, whatever. Anyways, it's just, you're speaking my language. This is so amazing. And knowing that it doesn't have an NAICS, what is it called?
Yeah, it's an NAICS code, which is a federal code that kind of brings all the industries together. And then the government then says, if you need grant funding or you need funding or whatever, here's the code that you use. And during COVID, there were specific grants that were linked to them, and we didn't fall into any of them.
I tried.
I know.
Totally.
And if you do research, all of us do something different. All vendor companies. So even if freelancers, forget about it. But then even vendors, that we all use something different because we don't know what the hell to use. Because when I used to work in business and you'd have to register the company, we finally were like, okay, this is the code we're going to pick. But we might not have picked the same code as the other lighting company or the audio company. But it's because we weren't think about it. So many industries have been organized for hundreds of years. We're just talking about our first generation retiring or right? So, we're figuring it out. Nikki, you with gigs are figuring this shit out. I'm sorry. I do have a potty mouth.
Girl, I love it. Let's go.
But that is one of the things. And so we have to figure out how to do it. And when you talk to people, I literally talked to somebody in the government and I said, how do you go about doing an apprenticeship and getting it recognized or stamped like a journeyman's? And they said, I'm not really sure because it was so long ago that it was established. To find the people. No, you can figure out how to get an NICS code. It's not sexy or fun, and it's really, really a pain in the ass. But
good luck. You have fun doing that. Thank you. Let me know when you got it. But it's really cool though, and baffling. Especially as I talk to investors or people that didn't know about this industry and educating them in it, knowing that it really is just one generation of people that built this thing. Knowing how it started, and then you have a Taylor Swift tour and a Beyonce tour, and luckily, we're on the freaking world map. It's a massive economy booster and all these things, and a fabulous paying, difficult, wonderful job to go into. And then also, hey, maybe you don't need a 4-year degree of debt.
Right.
If you want to work in this industry too, and you just want to go straight into it. So very, very cool. And we're talking about workforce development and things tomorrow in our panel here at the conference. We did a poll on gigs, and I want to read some of these results that we got. It's shocking.
Also, so glad that somebody like you can figure out how to like quickly get that content, because this woman is like, how do we go about it? Because, you know, it is amazing this is what social media can bring to us.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And also just how many people voted and how, I mean, I think it's really exciting to see. We asked for professionals, what matters most when choosing who you work for? And the options were respectful leadership, consistent work, pay, and growth opportunity. What do you think won? Or did you already look at the answers?
I did already look at the answers.
So the answer shocked me that number one is respectful leadership. By far, respectful leadership. Number two was consistent work. Number three was growth opportunity. And last was pay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, and if you read the comment section or the gripes of people, you think number one is pay. At least that's what I thought it was going to be. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
So what I loved about this, because after I was so excited and I did look at it because I was getting ready for tomorrow.
Yeah.
But remember how I said I read that I've been reading books about generations and things. Yes. And what they say is that people, when you talk to them across industries, what they want is clear communication from their leaders. They want open conversation. They want feedback, which what is respectful leadership. And so it was so fascinating to say, okay, so even though our industry is really unique, people in our industry want the same thing as people in other industries.
Wow.
We're just going to have to figure out how to do it differently.
We just think we're this special unicorn, and we have been, and we always will be. We're still going to do things differently. But it is interesting to see the similarities. Well, also what the new generation is bringing in.
Yeah. And I think also, again, I think the solutions will be different, but we're hearing the same things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the second question was for employers, what skills do you feel are most often missing in new hires? Technical skills, professionalism and work ethic, communication, and tour readiness. By far, the number one is professionalism and work ethic. Whoa. Number two, communication. Number three, tour readiness. Number four, technical skills. I kind of expected this, as every employer I talk to is like, I don't care if they don't know how to do anything. I want to train them up anyways. So it is that professionalism, work ethic, attitude. Makes a lot of sense. But does that track with the other industries too?
It does. Yeah. So I'm on the Lancaster County Workforce Development Board. So I do talk about in the county. Cool. So I'm sitting with other industries from construction to accounting to agriculture, and nursing is really big in this industry, hospitality. And they say the same thing. And again, I think what's so interesting is they talk about the soft skills. Because if some people are adaptable, flexible, and teachable, then they can learn they can be trained. And especially with the younger industry, their brains are so good at technology, which is such a critical component of who we are. That it is like, if they're smart and they are adaptable, they're going to be able to learn it. And I agree, having worked in HR, I would hire somebody if you gave me equal people. You gave me people who looked the same on the resume, same technical skills. If one presented and told me about ways that they problem solved or were dealing with conflict in a very, neutral way, I would hire that person over a person who was all about self or wasn't able to communicate. And so
easy.
And I love it.
So then how do we train that? It's interesting because in the training and the bringing on, what are we teaching? Okay, maybe we don't need to teach how to work this board because you could learn that quickly. It is actually the attitude that's needed. Very cool. Next is employers. What makes it hardest to build strong teams right now? Talent shortages, burnout, pay concerns, and lack of pathways. Very interesting. I didn't expect this. They answered pay concerns. But we see that the professional said pay is the last thing that they're concerned about. They want more respectful leadership, but employers think maybe that how do I pay them the right amount, whatever. Number two was burnout. Number three, talent shortages. And number four, lack of pathways. Hardest to build strong teams. So do you think employers are worried about not being able to afford enough people or afford good people? What do you think that's kind of leading towards?
Yeah. So I think what I hear from employers here on the campus is that it's about not only pay, but it's pay with like a certain amount of responsibility to it.
Right.
And so
many hats.
Many hats. So if I'm going to do that, I'll do that. But this is what I want to get paid. So I think there might be some, like in asking people, they're saying pay isn't as important, but they also want boundaries and things like that. And if we as employers are not giving boundaries or being respectful of some of those things, then what it ends up being is, I think about it, when especially, okay, some people will say, I'll do that, but if you pay me that, or I'll pay, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
we did a focus group on campus with some folks from that were in like the younger generation. And they did say I would work for a company and take less money if they were more respectful of my boundaries or the values aligned. And so I do wonder sometimes if as employers are looking at and saying, well, it's all about pay.
Yeah.
Because maybe when it comes down to it, if an employee is getting frustrated, they're like, okay, well, if you're not going to do A, B, and C for me, then pay me more.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm right, but
well, and it's a pendulum too. So maybe it's been swinging, especially since COVID, in the professionals direction. And I'm interested to hear what the room says when we talk about
I am
that.
super interested about that too.
Two more, because this is really cool. Professionals, asking them, what would make you stay with a company or a production manager longer? Better pay, consistent work, respectful culture and communication, and growth opportunities. The big winner again is that respectful culture and communication. The last is growth opportunities. That's shocking.
That shocked me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do think a lot of people want to know growth opportunities, but
Above pay. But yeah, it goes respectful culture. Next is consistent work. So that actually makes a lot of sense because, that's the worst feeling in the world is we call it gigxiety. Like, where's the next gig coming from?
Yeah.
It's December. Everyone's feeling it right now. That's why this is such a successful conference is like, oh shit, I got to get my next job. Let's go. I don't think there's really, my first thought is like, there's not really a huge like, hey, if you do this and then you do this, then you become this and this. It's not really mapped out about growth in general in this industry.
No, there are certain industries that are mapped out, education and things like that. But at the end of the day, like in our industry in particular, and I think there might be some other ones like this, like people often have said to me, how did I get here from where I was? And I said yes to opportunities and I just followed my gut. And so I do think even though we can't necessarily say do A, B, and C, even people who took different pathways, if you listen to what they're saying, there was probably something that they were doing. Like I always hear work ethic, problem solving, not being afraid. Those are, so pathway, maybe it is, hey, here are some of the soft skills that you have to master in order to get forward, because that's what we're seeing recognized. And adaptability, flexibility.
It's not doing the gig. It's how you do it and how you leave people feeling.
Yeah.
Wow. Because forever, good hang is gonna reign supreme in this industry.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Gigs, the professional career platform for the live event industry. So if you're looking for jobs in the live event space, or if you are hiring in this industry, go to gigs.live, become a professional, become an employer, start posting jobs and applying to jobs now. Join our community of tens of thousands of professionals in this industry. We have events around the country. We have employment opportunities. We have entertainment. We have education. So join Gigs today, gigs.live. Also, please go give us a 5-star review and follow us on our socials at gigs.live. Lastly, what needs to change in the industry to reduce burnout? Schedule demands, pay versus workload, leadership training, and mental and physical health support. The massive winner by like 50 votes is pay versus workload.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. It is that how many jobs are you working for what pay? Do you think this was the biggest concern for people before COVID as well? Or do you think it came up because everyone's kind of in a scarcity mindset, or where do you think?
I don't know. It's interesting. Like at the conference, we just had a bunch of people who talked about bigger shows, bigger stakes, and it was packed. Like there were people pulling out of Studio 3.
Cool.
And if you think about that bigger show, bigger stakes, it's because that we're asking these crews and teams to do more. So that one, when I saw it, I was like, I had just come from walking, and I literally, I'm not kidding you, Nikki. Was in the Academy of Lab Technology, walked from Studio 3, opened my computer and saw your notes. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about bigger stakes and bigger shows. We're asking people to do more. We're probably not paying them more for doing more. And we're asking them to do more on tight schedules. And we probably haven't raised their pay. So that one felt like this moment of like, that's an aha. That was like this aha for me. Like, holy crow, you caught what I just saw.
Wow.
Right? Doesn't that make sense?
Oh, huge. Yeah. That is the biggest, like, easiest winner too.
Yeah. And I do think that's since COVID, because we're like pushing, like the industry has just People don't stop going to concerts for we didn't stop it during the recession.
Right.
We're not stopping it now. I was just talking to a bus driver at Dreamliner. We were talking to them about workforce development and how they got here. And there was a woman who's been driving buses for 35 years.
LA?
Uh-huh.
Love her.
Yes. And she said, we just keep going after 9/11, after COVID, after the recession. We just keep going because people want to continue to go out and feel good. And so I think our industry surged after COVID, but there is a price for the teams, the crews.
And how that affects ticket prices and how, what's going on with all of this? How can prices keep going up and where does it stop? And so I think the question is where does the change come from? Who starts it? And I guess it's important that these conversations are happening at a place like this, where a lot of the leaders and decision makers on these tours are in these conversations to hear.
Yeah.
You probably need to pay people what they're worth, but what is that? There's no industry standard. In every other industry, there's a standard, and that's something that I was hoping with gigs could start collecting, but there's so many nuances in this industry. So you want to allow employers to say, well, it totally depends on how much experience. So it's just we are learning.
And so one of the things I think with gigs, especially because you're seeing all these different jobs, there is some consistency in our vocabulary of a job, but does a tour manager in one job mean the same thing as a tour manager in another job? And then do we call a project manager or an account manager? Are those the same things from company to company? And I think there is something that time and time again, you learn vocabulary, when we're speaking the same language, we all have understanding and alignment. And so if we're posting jobs and everybody saying something different because we've used different terms, it's nobody's fault. It's just how we've evolved. Then it's hard to figure out that this job is worth this amount and you need these skill sets. And in corporations, that's what they get. We don't want to be corporate.
I know.
But there is something about figuring out how to speak common languages and coming together and saying, this is what we mean when we say this, so that you can go and say, I'm a tour manager that does ABC. I have this experience. I deserve this much pay.
And that's empowering the professional. Yeah.
I think so.
That's interesting.
I hope so.
It's how do you, if we're bringing in training and education and things, how do you bring this stuff in without it being corporatized? Because that's my huge fear. I really, my hope of gigs is the mission is to bring the industry together, somehow professionalize us in a way that we can have a professional job board, a professional resume, maybe a standard way of posting a job. What does that look like? Instead of a job post that says, needing a bus driver for a weekend run, it just says bus driver. And then you see it what does that look like? But man, the hate we've gotten, it's crazy, the hate we've gotten in that. So it's, how do you do it really subtly and still get the respect of the industry too?
Yeah.
And respect the industry.
I don't know how we do it. I know that I understand corporate is a dirty word in our industry. I am a person who does systems and processes and structure. And so I like to think what you're talking about is trying to put a structure in place. It's not trying to take the family out of it. It's not trying to take the personal feel out of it. It is trying to say, in most cases, can we try and go this way? There's always going to be exceptions, but can we get some structure to make our lives easier? Because isn't that also what we try and do with our family and friends sometimes, right? So I hear you because I keep on saying, because sometimes I do structure. People are oh my gosh, Suzi, you're getting corporate. I'm I'm not. I'm going to keep on saying for as long as they say, and I'm going to be here and believe in this, that I think that we can put some structure and frameworks in place to give our industry more power, to keep us more vibrant and to answer some of these questions. And you're never going to answer all of them. So, girl, I'm on your bandwagon of how do we try and do that? And I appreciate that people struggle with that. And I could never do what you're doing because I think I would be so sad if I saw that on social media.
No. Give it to me. Keep coming. Give me hate.
But I think that it's really important to try and say corporate, this structure and framework isn't bad. And some of what we're hearing in the conference is asking for, we want to get it better for our crews. And some of that means this is what we're accepting and this is what we're not. And that is framework, that is structure. And that's not corporate.
It's not corporate. It's just professionalizing us a bit.
It's professionalizing.
When you have a tour like a Taylor Swift, or you have the technology and the risk and the danger, you kind of have to grow with it. You still can't just be a pirate anymore.
No. You still have to have a cowboy or pirate spirit from time to time.
Oh, for sure.
But you're right. It's no longer safe.
And how do you keep the spirit of it? Yep.
Yeah.
It's the challenge.
It is a challenge.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it really is.
Luckily, there's a lot of people that care a lot and are a lot of minds going in together. So
I think so. And I think I'm always hopeful that the younger generations will kind of it'll take people who are in power positions, but I always think you have to push down and push up. And I think the younger generations are going to be helping us figure things out in ways we didn't even know.
Yeah, man.
So I'm really excited. And that's one of the reasons why I'm dorkishly going to plug Workforce Live, the nonprofit, because we want to try and recruit folks who think like us and to help problem solve, and then just keep them here. Like, don't go to other industries. Just stay with us.
Yeah.
Come here, help us figure this out together.
Yeah. And I mean, a big reason why people leave is that insecurity of not having the next job.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I was starting out, I was like nannying and babysitting and doing random jobs just so that I could, I have that running gig one this month. Yeah. Okay. How do I supplement so that I can keep going? And so, for a lot of hustlers, hell yeah. Like I'm an entrepreneur. I'm okay with that kind of risk. But for a lot of people, it scares them away from this industry because dead period right now in December is too scary. And they want some more stability. Yeah. So can our industry be stable? What does that even look like? Are we built for that? Yeah.
I'm not really sure, but I do think that it's like I want to keep on plugging away at it and trying to figure out how people are trying to figure out the same things and, work together and to say, hey, as you're figuring that out. And, it's hard. I do think in my position working for Rock Lititz, I get to kind of sit in, I call it a privileged position because I'm not hiring all the people. I'm not doing I'm not the one who has to go up against somebody else's quote on a sales. So I look at it from this perspective of, and I think that's how you're looking at it too, right? I mean, how do we work together and to solve these gaps? And there's a place for everybody. Yeah. And so, even with the nonprofit, like I was saying, I think that sometimes I think business has a place and there's business model for certain things and even certain things in what we're talking about professionalism and education and training. That's obviously very business. But when we're trying to collect data and bring things together, I sometimes wonder if hey, can we look at that through a nonprofit lens that benefits everyone? So we can gather data that could benefit gigs or can benefit Live Nation or AEG or, Tate, because it helps you figure out how you work on a business model that helps your revenue. Because we want more people. We work in a capital society. We have to make money in order to employ people so that they can have a consistent pay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oof. Big issues. Yeah. Big problems.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, coming into this industry, I know you were in events world and you were in lighting, and coming into Rock Lititz, what was like the biggest culture shock for you as like an outsider looking into the industry that maybe like, really that's how it works, or maybe that made you fall in love with the industry?
So I think the one thing that was the biggest culture shock for me that was hard for me to reconcile was having come from higher education where you're working with students and you're trying to guide them. Like you had to really think about what you were saying and approach it with communication skills and in a really mellow, negative tone. You didn't speak to people in certain ways. So it was actually really surprising to me to come into this industry and hear how there was a bit of, you just do it because I told you to do it and shut up. And I'm not using expletives, but really not necessarily always speaking in a respectful way to people. It was interesting because that surprised me because I liked so many of the people and was I clicked with them one-on-one, and I thought, well, why is this an industry of amazing creative problem solvers? Why do we sometimes talk down to one another? Because I do think that they're you kind of rough and tumble. When you're in a gig, you're working hard. And so just get your ass off the bus instead of saying, hey, I need you to, you know what I mean? That was a surprise to me, but I also saw so many people who were so kind and caring and who wanted to try and shift that made me want to be here more, because I think I was coming in at a time when people did say, we want you to not talk to us like that. We do want to have kinder conversations. And I liked being at a place that felt entrepreneurial, where you can make a change.
Interesting. I also feel like a reason for the maybe harsher language or attitude is maybe competitiveness too, because at every second someone could replace you, or your gig is up in 2 months and you don't know what's next.
Yep. So when we were having a conversation yesterday, talking about like looking at like what's going on with the industry with a group of amazing professionals, somebody used the term gatekeeping, and that the folks who have been in the industry longer also were gatekeepers, which is really interesting to me. And I'm not sure too because I'm further along in my career and, closer to retirement than most people in this industry, or if it was because of being the way that I like trained and grew up. What I saw was one of the best things you could do as a leader, a professional, was to make sure that you were replaceable. It was something that was taught to me young from an amazing like mentor that I had, woman, who basically like empowered me because she felt like she was doing her job if I could also like eventually do her job. Yeah. So gatekeeping was really
good leadership.
It is good leadership, but gatekeeping really surprised me because I also think that if you're holding on to stuff, then you're not passing that on. And so don't you want to make sure that I think that's the best legacy you could give. I think one of the things I love about the conference, the tagline is leave it better than you found it. I think that's what we should be doing, is figuring out how to pass on that information so that if you want to retire, you can retire because you know that a company or a position or a gig is in good hands. And I also think that, I don't know, and again, I love to watch younger people have that aha moment. And I also like to watch professionals step into their own. And I think that's really important. And so that was another one that I'm like, I don't understand it. Like it doesn't make sense to me. It wasn't logical to me because that wasn't, and I love to hear people talking about how they realize, oh, that doesn't make sense. That will actually hurt our industry. That will hurt our legacy because it won't be done the way that we think it should be done. And so we also like capturing that, which I love that you're doing and talking to so many people to capture the knowledge. Yeah. Because I think that's really important.
Oh, yeah. And the aha moment also of, oh my God, this is so what I'm meant to do. Yeah. I live for that. Like this, like definitely one of my most favorite things. Like even just being here, I've seen so many people that have come up to me and said, holy shit, because I got that job, I got this job from gigs or whatever it is. And they're just like, this is what I'm meant to do. I love it so much. I have to stay in this. And you just don't hear people talking like that in accounting or like other areas like at all. This really, there's this fire and this passion in this industry that, I just love so much. And that's definitely motivating all of us to keep it going. Leave it better than we found it. Boom.
There you go.
Thank you, Suzi.
Thank you.
Awesome. I can't wait for tomorrow to hear everyone.
I know. I can't wait for our discussion. It's going to be amazing.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.